Sometimes in the fantasy game, there's surprises thrown your way. And on the latest edition of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, we're taking a look at players exceeding expectations that have probably been a big reason your team's at the top. Of course, big time bets and everything else that you need to get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back inside the lab, everybody, to your daily 30-minute source for fantasy hockey, NHL news, and betting breakdowns. It's the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. I'm joined, as always, by my distinguished co-host, Mr. Steele Roden. On this side of the microphone, it's your boy, Big Flip Livingstone. Shout out to the everydayers. Salute, thank you, and much love for holding us down and making us your first listen every single day. The NHL is getting down to the nitty-gritty, and we appreciate you being here Monday through Friday. We promise we'll be bringing it all the way until that Stanley Cup gets lifted. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Steele, there is a lot going on in the world of hockey, and we're going to continue to break it all down for you guys in and out in 30 minutes every single day. Today, we get to look at a positive bit of fantasy news, players that have surprised so far this season. And I really did want to say, as much as we're somewhat running out of angles to cover, new ones at least in the fantasy game, it's never too early to look ahead. And I think some of these players, you can really not only count on them this season, but next season as well, who have established themselves as some fantasy values. Let's have a look at it. We've got a number of players: Chychrun, Blackwood, Wilson, Holloway. We'll get to tonight's same game parlays. We're here all week. But over to you, my friends. My friend, got a couple of different players here. I'm intrigued to hear who you're looking at and why.
Yeah, I love the fact that we're coming up with different players here. Sometimes we have some of the same guys, but we have 6 different players. I got 2 honorable mentions that I just want to rattle off real quick. Number 1, Martin Necas. I think he's showing us that the 71-point season from 2 years ago was not just a fluke. He has 59. He had 59 points, 55 points in 49 games with the Hurricanes, and then 18 points in 19 so far with the Avalanche, and especially going and continuing his career with Colorado alongside Makar and Nathan MacKinnon. I think his fantasy value is going to skyrocket the next couple of seasons, as well as Rickard Rakell. He's just been skating along, doing his thing in Pittsburgh. As much as there's negative things to say about the Penguins, right behind Sidney Crosby, Rickard Rakell at the age of 31. He's been very good this season as well. He's been a surprising fantasy piece for your fantasy hockey leagues. My first guy, and I know you want to talk about another player from the Washington Capitals. For me, it's Tom Wilson. When I look at his average draft position, he was getting drafted 194.3, which is round 16.3. I actually, myself, in fact, drafted him 161st in round 16 in my keeper league, which has 10 teams. At the age of 30, he's now hitting his career highs in a lot of categories, career highs in goals, soon to be assists, points, plus minus, and on pace for a career high in shots. He has 29 goals, 11 of them on the power play, which he hasn't hit double digits before, 2 on the penalty kill, 56 points, a plus 21, 145 shots, and 55 blocks. And if that doesn't settle it for you Banger League beauties out there, 189 hits with 70 penalty minutes. I know that's a lot of numbers, but it all factors into his fantasy value and what he's done this season. He's been a top 15 fantasy hockey player, sometimes top 10, and depending on the format. He's just been that dominant in all those categories. And he may not be the most skilled player on the ice, but he makes an impact the same way, just in a different style. And I don't know if you saw his quote from earlier in the season. He's had to change his game to be a more effective player. I read an article earlier in January where Wilson was actually talking about how he gives his opponents a heads up when he's coming for a big hit. He's had to change that aspect of his game. And I think that's made him more productive with shooting the puck in the offensive zone. You know, he's trying to take away those dangerous hits, making sure he's not suspended, missing games played for his team. You know, when we talk about Brady Tkachuk, he's like the knockoff version of Brady Tkachuk. It's weird to say because he's older than him, but he really is. He's a contributing factor offensively. He's got all those career highs. He brings the physical aspect. And again, we praise Tkachuk for being a first-round pick. Look at what you can get from Tom Wilson in the 16th. I think going into next year, he's going to be taken a lot higher, and especially with him playing with Ovechkin, up until Ovechkin retires, which could be, 2 years away. I think fantasy value-wise, Tom Wilson, he's right up there, and he's going to continue to do so.
These players that we're mentioning aren't exactly going to be out there for you to grab. That's not really the angle we're trying to cover. However, if they are out there, it's immediate, and you'll understand why after we're done talking about them. But I think what you and I are going to continue to try and do week by week, episode by episode, is not only give some love to those GMs that are still in the mix trying to get that money, like I always say, get this paper, but also the GM steal. I'm already looking ahead in my Keeper Dynasty League to really position my team nicely for the season, and some of these decisions and some of these players we're going to talk about might make these keeper decisions a little bit more easy for you. Jacob Chychrun, I want to continue to talk about the Washington Capitals because you're right. There's a lot of good things going on here. Honorable mention to Alexei Protas. This is a kid that has been absolutely sensational out of nowhere, far exceeding expectations and a massive surprise in terms of fantasy production. And I just wanted to bring this up very quickly because I believe when I was looking at his numbers, Steele, in terms of, and I know this is a category only in some leagues, Alexei Protas leads the NHL by forwards in plus minus at plus 41, and he has 59 points. So a little honorable mention love there to another Washington Capital. And let's move right back to the blue line because another big reason for this team's success has been Jacob Chychrun. And I know last year he was pretty good, like production-wise for the Ottawa Senators. 60 penalty minutes, 41 points. We saw kind of the player that everyone was waiting around for Jacob Chychrun to be, but he has doubled down this season, and he's even better because, 18 goals. Still, he's third in the NHL by goals by a D-man. He is going to set a career high in points, or already has set a career high in points.
Already has, yeah.
He has across the board been sensational for this team. He is a plus 23 as well. I know a lot of those numbers somewhat have to do with the Washington Capitals, but it looks like they're going to continue to be good. And when you got a piece of these players this season, there is no doubt in my mind that your team is going to be at the top of your table. And once again, if you can maneuver the offseason well, especially in the keeper dynasty realm, I say as a 26-year-old, 27-year-old rear guard in the NHL Steele who can put up the offensive value, and I know the hits and blocks are somewhat down for him, but still chip in with peripheral love. This is a guy that should be all on the lips of fantasy GMs out there in terms of pieces that you want.
Look, there's a reason that Chychrun was getting drafted on average in the 15th round, really low like Tom Wilson because of those injury concerns. He hasn't had to deal with any of that this season. He's played 66 games. Like you said, already hit a career high. That was the question mark with him. It wasn't a question of if he was talented enough. We knew it was, but can he stay healthy? He has done so this season, and all of those additions that Washington made in the offseason are paying off right now. You look up and down the lineup, right to their goaltender, to their top line right now with all the young prospects, Logan Thompson, Jacob Chychrun, Mangiapane, and so on. Capitals running it up right now in the Eastern Conference. Chychrun and Wilson, big part of that success.
Most definitely sitting with 96 points right now, Steele, top of the Eastern Conference, only 2 points short of the Winnipeg Jets. There's so much more that we're going to have to cover as we near the playoffs. We're ticking down now. It's about to get real serious up in here. Fantasy or just in the standings wise. We've got a whole bunch of other players that we need to talk about around the break. Stay tuned. The rest of the week, we'll be breaking down angles that will take your team to the top. A couple of top 10s, I think, coming in hot here, Steele. Maybe a little fantasy league check-in. Perhaps we'll get there. It's been a little bit ugly for your boy, but at least Steele's holding down the brand. Appreciate that. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. There's nothing like watching basketball live, the energy of the crowd, the sound, the sneakers on the hardwood, and even a celebrity sighting or two courtside. If you want to catch a game in person, Game Time makes getting tickets easier than ever. Right now, Game Time Picks filters out the fluff and shows you only the best deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time scrolling through thousands of tickets. Easy ticket shopping. We've been all over the Game Time app. Steele and I are loving it for all these amazing deals. So many huge matchups coming up. Steele, I don't know about you if the schedule can handle it. We might be having to get down to a Leafs playoff game Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the app today, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. What time is it? It's game time. Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends at Monarch Money. Have you ever been into your bank account and wonder where all that cash is gone? Between dining out, shopping, entertainment, it's easy to lose track. But with Monarch Money, your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. Stop managing your money and start building wealth today. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's Monarch Money, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod your first listen every single day. Hit that subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review. Flip, and I appreciate all that love and support. Let's continue on the conversation of surprising fantasy pieces, players who have exceeded our expectations so far on the season. I gotta go out west. St. Louis Blues,
Same.
Dylan Holloway. I mean, this has been a surprising kid, to say the least, this season. 2020 14th overall pick, draft pick from the Edmonton Oilers. And when I look at Holloway, I just think, why couldn't you play like this in Edmonton? Why couldn't you make it work with McDavid and Draisaitl? He had a chance to play with two of the best players in the NHL right now, and maybe that was the downfall. He was put in a position, given an opportunity to play with the best, and maybe just couldn't keep up with them.
Sure.
That might be what happened. Regardless of that, to jump from 9 points the previous season to 51 points and counting in 68 games with the St. Louis Blues is absolutely insane, and it needs to be talked about. 22 goals, 29 assists, 145 shots, 44 blocks, 142 hits. And if you're going to tell me that it's only costing the Blues $2.29 million each year for the next 2 years, and they offer sheeted him, wow, what a deal for the Blues as they continue to fight for a playoff spot, a wild card spot in the Western Conference right now. And like I said, a few weeks ago in a previous episode, wouldn't the Oilers love for a player like this in their lineup right now? Bottom six, top six, who can contribute. I know he was there, it didn't work out, but they would love to have him. They would probably love to have Broberg back and Warren Foegele, all guys contributing, making differences with their new clubs. Dylan Holloway had to be mentioned. Again, we're looking at some of these pieces right now going into next year. Really, I don't think Dylan Holloway was getting drafted.
No.
If he was, it was in the later rounds. You picked him up. He's rostered at 40 to 50% right now on Yahoo, somewhere around the same on ESPN. He's been one of those guys you pick up off the waiver wire, and he's a contributing factor for your fantasy hockey team.
100% Steele. I love that you brought up this player. This fits the mold so nicely about everything that we're trying to cover on today's episode for the listeners out there to take away with. And I would say take away this. With 142 hits for this kid at 23, very versatile, kind of like a Swiss Army knife. He can play a little bit of everywhere. He can also be shifted from the center to the wing position. I think he, to me, is the prototypical power forward that is set to explode.
He is.
He is a guy that's going to probably hit our list as sleeper targets, X factors, whatever have you, maybe even breakouts for next year's draft preparation. And you're seeing it. I know 68 games is not exactly a huge sample size, but he was a first-round draft pick, a 14th overall draft pick for a reason. All of the angles with the Oilers, is it unfortunate for Oilers fans? Does it work out that way sometimes? 100%. What's also intriguing for me, Steele, is he's getting it done on a very average St. Louis Blues team. This is a Blues club that doesn't exactly have a good special teams, right? I think they're sitting 18th in the NHL in power play proficiency. They sit just outside of the top half in overall goals for. So this is a situation where I'm actually going to read into the player's talent a lot more than just benefiting from a good offensive group around him, which tells me that if this young St. Louis Blues team takes a bit of a step next year, who knows? What does that then mean for Dylan Holloway even more so? Shout out to you. Love this player. This is a guy you and I have both been on this season. Really great add and keep situation that I hope our listeners out there have capitalized on. even though it hasn't worked out so nicely for me, Mackenzie Blackwood was one of those guys that I immediately went out and grabbed the second that the trade broke from the San Jose Sharks. And everyone kind of knows this one, Steele, but I think that it's gone very well to the point where he's exceeding my expectations most definitely. Since moving to Colorado, 18-7-3, 2 shutouts, a .920 save percentage. Those goals against average numbers, those can be inflated by a good team, but save percentage is very indicative of what a goaltender is doing and seeing. And .920 is more than good enough for me to feel confident about this Colorado Avalanche team. Hopefully not too confident, tease to bets, but for them down the stretch. Mackenzie Blackwood now has a long-term deal in the bag and a really good blue line in front of him. Guys, this was a goaltender that wasn't even drafted. Next season, he is going to be right there at the top of the 0G target options, and I really needed to give him some love because as much as moving from San Jose to Colorado, it makes sense that the value went up. According to Fantasy Pros, he is the 4th most valuable goaltender currently in terms of fantasy points collected this season, and he has really, really surpassed my expectations considering where he's been the last couple of years.
And that's the difference a trade can make for fantasy hockey leagues. I mean, this happens. Mackenzie Blackwood was a goaltender that was maybe streamed on a week-to-week basis, always rostered below 15%. He goes from San Jose to Colorado. Look what happens. He's rostered now over 75% across all fantasy hockey platforms. And like you said, I mean, we've talked about this team. They've completely revamped the entire lineup. You go up and down from forwards to defensemen to goaltenders. I mean, they did not start we said this. They've had over 52, 53 players dress up in an Avalanche uniform this season. You can make 2 teams with that amount of players. So Mackenzie Blackwood, I like the fact that you bring him up, fits this mold as well perfectly for what we're talking about. Surprising pieces for this fantasy hockey season. We each got one more player left that we want to talk about. We'll come back after the break, of course, with big time bets. This episode, though, it's also brought to you by Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. Experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. You need to find the right talent. If you need help with a marketing campaign, Upwork can connect you with a freelance expert who delivers incredible results. Fast and easy hiring. Posting a job is free and simple, and within a day with multiple qualified candidates to choose from. Instead of hiring full-time, Upwork helps find affordable top-tier freelancers to scale my business efficiently. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com to connect with a top talent and grow your business today.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
And once again, thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day, Monday through Friday, 7 o'clock in the morning is when you can find our episode. Share with your friends and family out there. It really does mean the world to Flip and I. Big time bets. We'll get to that soon. One last player from each of us. Over to you, my friend, co-host Flip. Last player that has really surprised you and exceeded your expectations on what you thought they could do this season.
You know, looking at the average draft position of Brandon Hagel, where he was taken in terms of left wingers, I'm seeing he was right there around the 9th left winger off the board. I don't know if that's actually accurate. That doesn't make sense to me. But what does make sense to me, Steele, is when I'm looking at this fantasy data. And in terms of left wing production, after Kyle Connor, Brandon Hagel is having a sensational season. And look, last year, 26 goals, the 49 assists. Maybe I should expected that he was going to be right back there hovering around 80 points. He set a career high in goals. He's going to set a career high in assists. He set a career high in shots on net. Ice time is up. He's got 4 game-winning goals. He gets named to the Four Nations face-off team. Also surprising. This kid, this guy, he deserves so much credit. John Cooper, the Bolts, I just needed to somehow get a player of this nature in there, and I think he's established himself now. And perhaps he did 2 years ago with a 64-point, 30-goal year. This guy's a top 10 player off the board at the position. He might even be top 6 or 7 now with what he brings peripherally, because it doesn't jump off the board, but it's just so even. Take in, plus 28. 50 penalty minutes, 50 block shots, 49 hits, steady as she goes. And then you get 75 plus points every year playing in the group in Tampa Bay. I think there's going to be a lot of fantasy GMs that kind of overlook him once again next season. Dedicated circles for sure. They know all about Hagel. Terms of players that have surprised me and really surpassed expectations, this guy is so good, and he has put himself in the conversation with those other nasty left wingers, Gensel, Bratt, Connor, Boldy, Robertson, and now I think Brandon Hagel.
Look, I was going to say there was a reason he was selected for the Four Nations face-off Team Canada, and it wasn't because John Cooper was showing a little bit of favoritism to his Lightning players. He's an absolute dog, and he has been a workhorse for them ever since they traded for him from the Chicago Blackhawks. I love that you bring him up. He's still been a fantastic fantasy piece, but even so, he's been exceeding the expectations of what we thought he could do. Great group in Tampa Bay. That's why that's why they're rated one of the best franchises in the league right now, ownership wise anyway. They do very well there, obviously. My last player that I'm looking at that has been a big surprise, honestly exceeded expectations from my wildest dreams, Vegas Golden Knights, Pavel Dorofeyev. Has to be talked about alongside Dylan Holloway as well. And correction, Dylan Holloway was actually rostered at 58% on Yahoo. It was Dorofeyev rostered at 40%. Third round pick by the Knights in the 2019 draft. And for this season, fantasy wise, he may have been one of those picks in the last 2 rounds that you just, kind of just like, I'll take a shot in the dark. I really don't think this kid was drafted at all in any fantasy leagues this year. Just picked up off the waiver wire and just started running with it. And he really just has been breaking onto this scene. He had a good year last season in 2023 in half a year, finished with 24 points. I think it was 24 points in 48 games, something along those lines. Today, he has 43 points in 67 games. He's lighting up the lamp right now, has 27 goals to date and counting. Loves to shoot the puck, 200 shots on net, which puts him 21st in the league at age 24. I mean, he has so much confidence right now. Why not? He's built trust under Bruce Cassidy and his teammates. He's worked and earned a spot on the first power play unit for now.
Yes.
I really think, again, going into next year alongside Dylan Holloway and a few other young guns that we're going to talk about when we break this down further in the offseason, Dorofeyev's going to be in the top 5. He's a contributing factor right now. He's playing for a well team in the Western Conference, a very good team in the Vegas Golden Knights. And I really like what he's doing right now because he's kicking my butt in my playoff matchup this week.
Definitely one of those players that is now going to be on the radars of GMs from a purely offensive perspective. He has slick hands, a great shot, playmaking ability. Let's see if he can build on it. Steele, I'm very intrigued. Playing alongside Thomas Hertl has been a nice little angle for him as well. At the end of the day, I think you and I have probably talked about him on Waiver Wire Monday episodes a whole bunch. This is a player that also, though, has still some to learn at the other end of the ice, but I think
100%.
That's going to come. And, before this season, he had less than a full campaign in the NHL under his belt. So these players, I'm loving the mold for next season. There's fantasy GMs out there who, you've counted yourself out. You're not paying attention, and that's fine. That's happened to me all the time. Just don't miss opportunities to still learn. Stash a few players in your pocket. If you're keeper dynasty, position your team nicely into next season. These are the angles that astute GMs that win on the regular will not miss. So, You might be thinking this is the time to lay off the pod and not tap in. Incorrect. No matter where you are
It
in
never
your fantasy
is.
leagues, we've got you covered. Rookies, experts, fantasy GMs out of it, in it. Doesn't matter. We got you covered. And, of course, we'll wrap every episode with bets. So over to you, my friend. Who are you looking at tonight? Only a 2-game board. I got a same-game parlay, and I think you know where it's coming from. So over to you for your picks.
Well, howdy do, because I got a same-game parlay as well.
Let's
going
go.
back to the well here. 2 out of 3 picks for me, hit for me in the Flames Maple Leafs game from Monday. Of course,
Same.
the one time I don't go with Austin Matthews anytime goal. He pops off for 2.
Well,
absolutely love that. So I'm going back to it. That's what I'm going back to. I picked John
Yes.
Tavares last time. I'm going with Austin Matthews this time. Austin Matthews, anytime goal for my first pick.
Boom.
Again, just like I like what I saw from him. For a while there, he wasn't playing well defensively, offensively. Obviously, like you said, you didn't know if there was a nagging injury there. I think he shut some people up a little bit after that 2-goal performance. Craig Berube's comment on him after the game is what's fired me up as well. So Austin Matthews, anytime goal. I'm also going to go Nathan McKinnon anytime goal because he's just that dog. He's the Nate dog for a reason. He's the best hockey player in the league right now. Offensively, it's going to be a bloodbath in this game. And for that reason, that's why I'm taking the Maple Leafs Avalanche over 6.5. I think we're going to get some really good goaltending in this. But when you look at the last 10 matchups, 8 of the last 10 have gone over the number.
Yes,
and I just think there's too much talent for this to be a low scoring game, in my opinion. So we've seen it in the past with the trend in the last 10 games between these two teams. There's too much talent on both squads for it to be a low scoring one. Again, goaltending has been a little bit shaky at times for the Leafs and for the Avalanche, even though they've been playing very well. I like the over 6.5. Lock of the night is the over 6.5.
My lock of the night is the over 6.5 as well, my friend. I would even take it down to 5.5, honestly.
Yeah,
in
I'd be
the
comfortable
same
with
game
that too.
parlay sense, especially in your angles with 2 anytime goal scorers. I'm comfortable. You know what? I'm going to take it down to 5.5 just now. We talked it out loud.
Don't cop out. Ride with me, buddy.
All right. Lock of the night. It's a high scoring game. How about that? Excuse me. Austin Matthews was also in here for me, Steele, in his career against the Colorado Avalanche. 15 career regular season games played, 10 goals, 10 assists. If you want to cop out again, go Austin Matthews anytime point, but I'm really loving Poppy again. I do think he's playing through something, Steele. We talked all about that. We don't need to go back down that angle, but if he's even at 65%, he's better than 80% of the league. So those are some percentages for you to mull over. My third pick of this situation, and this is where I'm going to get some juice and also some heat. The Colorado Avalanche are the hottest team in the NHL, but I actually don't care. The Toronto Maple Leafs need to respond in a very big way because, 6-2 against Calgary is nice, but this is a team that needs to prove to themselves first and foremost, but their coach and their fan base next, that they can head into the playoffs on a heater. I can't remember the last number of years where we've headed into the season, the postseason, as a Leafs fan base and gone, this is our year. And I really mean it. Because, we talk about it as, jokes around. It's the cup. It's the Leafs. But I mean, in real hockey sense, they tend to back in. I want them to beat some good teams down the stretch here, and I think this is a great opportunity for an Avs team that is the hottest in the league at 8-1-1. They just reloaded at the deadline. If you want to show to yourself that you can beat these teams, respond, because they also just hung a 7-piece on you the previous week. So this is a big-time prove-it game for me. The Calgary one, it's nice. They needed it. But this is the situation that I'm looking to this team to really tell me if this is the year or not. And I know it's just one game, but the Avs are for real, Steele, and they have the pieces that the Leafs are going to have to go through in terms of those big studs on the opponents. So let's see what they can do here Wednesday night. Leafs money line over 6.5 for you as the lock of the night, and Austin Matthews anytime goal as well.
Well, let's get after it. Same game parlay once again, just 2 days apart. Leafs money line over 6.5. Austin Matthews anytime goal. Put that with the Nathan McKinnon anytime goal. The Avalanche are going to get theirs as well in this matchup. That's the lock of the night. Those are the picks, the same game parlay. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod your first listen every single day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NHL podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. From your boys here, from both Flip and Steele. We wish you good luck with those weekly matchups. The playoffs, if you're in them already, good luck. Good luck with those big time bets. And we shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Peace.